Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to Radio Free Rhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Paul Abruzzo. Paul, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And you brought in some poems, and we were just talking about how we met, which was through tennis.
Another kind of poetry.
Another kind of, well, the way you play it is. I don't know how you'd characterize my game, but you don't have to do it now, mercifully. You also work as a librarian at the New School. You're also really, from what I see on Facebook anyway, really smitten father and devoted husband. You've got all these sort of identities. And it made me think, how do you define yourself? What is when somebody asks a question like that, what's the first thing that comes into your head?
Well, I suppose it depends on who I'm talking to. Right?
Are you meeting a stranger on the subway?
I don't meet strangers on the subway.
Don't you? I can now I'm imagining your resting bitch face. The subway face.
I always keep it short and say that I'm a librarian first.
Right.
I mean, but if a conversation is about family, I'll mention my wife and daughter and my stepkid right away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
And so how did you come to be a librarian?
Oh, that's a good question. I was working in publishing for a small publishing house in New York. And the guy who got me the job was an old professor of mine, a history professor named Howard Zinn.
Oh.
Who wrote A People's History of the United States.
Wow, nice.
And I was looking for a job in publishing. It was 1996, I think, late 96. And I had just finished graduate work, finally. It took forever. And was looking for a job in publishing. But that wasn't the reason I went to see Howard when I saw that he was in town. He was talking in a bookstore in Chelsea. It was an old communist bookstore that was there forever. And so I showed up and I sat close. Howard had thousands and thousands of students, so I wasn't even sure if he would remember me.
Right.
But I did talk to him a lot after class, so I was pretty confident he would. And I asked a question during the Q&A, and I could see he recognized me, and I went up to say hello. It was the book was The Zinn Reader was coming out, that Seven Stories Press did. And he said, Howard asked me, what are you up to? And I said, well, I'm looking for a job in publishing. And he said, well, here's my publisher. And I shook hands with Dan Simon, the publisher of Seven Stories. And he asked me to come in right away to talk. So it was that week. I went in and I talked to Dan, and he offered me an internship. So I started as an intern. You know, it's usually how those things start.
How old were you at this point in time?
I don't know. What is it? About 30, I guess. Yeah, around 30 years old.
And what had you been doing prior to that?
31. Oh, just trying to finish my graduate. I'm an ex-problem drinker, too, so that's a big part of my story in my life. So,
you are?
So I was trying to come out of the drinking period, and I eventually did. So I'm an ex-problem drinker. But so at the time, I sort of I worked my way into Seven Stories. So I was editing books, I was doing publicity. A small house, you do everything. You know?
Right.
And eventually got sort of dissatisfied with the work and the pay. Just taking work home every weekend and low pay in a small publishing house. And one of my authors, guy I edited, went to library school. Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, we started doing a book with Howard Zinn, the historian, documents of A People's History of the United States, primary source documents. So part of my job, like 2 days a week, I would go to the NYU library and try to find documents that he used and peripheral documents in American history to track the People's History of the United States, to do this primary source document book.
Wow.
So I did that. Doing that work, I remembered how much I loved libraries and research. And then this author of mine went to library school. I quizzed him about it. And I quit within 2 weeks and went to library school. Changed careers. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so let's back it up. Where were you in college?
I went to college first in at a SUNY
Uh-huh.
near Rochester called Geneseo.
Uh-huh.
And I failed out because of my love of drink. And,
Really? And what was your poison?
Beer and scotch.
Okay.
Beer and scotch usually together.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I loved that. So, and then I tried. My father was a caterer. He convinced me to go to cooking school. So I went to the CIA up here.
Oh, nice.
For a little bit. I hated it. I hated being in kitchens. I thought, I did like meeting people who were passionate about something.
Right.
That was the great thing about cooking school for me, to understand passion and see it in operation every day in
Right.
these kitchens. Even though I hated it, I didn't want to be in a kitchen. So I moved to the city. I was going to go to a CUNY school, but my mother convinced me to follow the advice of my high school guidance counselor and apply to this program at Boston University. It was called at the time the College of Basic Studies. And it was really for kids like me who just barely made it out of high school, which I did because I was drinking and smoking pot all the time.
In high school?
Yeah. Oh,
Oof.
yeah. So, and that program changed everything. It was amazing. And then that's where I met Howard Zinn later as a junior.
So you were a little
Yeah.
adrift, and your mom said, "Oh, remember Mr. So-and-so
Right.
said you should
Mr.
do this."
Weinstein or Weinberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said, "All right." You gave it a try. You applied. You got in.
Got in.
And
right.
and what was the program like?
It was intensive. It was designed to be kind of intimate, and you had 5 classes, and all your professors were in the same suite, and they communicated it, and they designed your program of study together.
Right.
So it was more like an extended high school experience, maybe a private high school, although I don't really know. I'm guessing, And so the politics that we were studying in history were in line with the science we were studying in some way. They tried to weave all of the program together. The rhetoric, there was a rhetoric class, which was a writing class, and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I did very well for the first time in school. I discovered that I might have a brain, that I might be smart.
And prior to this, you had no inkling that you might have a sharp intellect.
No, none. I had very low self-esteem. I was terrified of trying. I was terrified of success in a way, which is a long story, but has to do with family history, I think, probably.
And, I hear people say that, and I'm always curious, like, well, what's to be terrified of? I mean, success is what everybody seems to want.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
I'm just going to push one more time.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have sort of thought of that over the years. I mean, it's not a fear of failure, which you almost started to say, but a terror of success.
Yeah.
What do you think in your family? Well, think about your family. You mentioned. Were they afraid of success?
They were afraid of my success, is what I've concluded.
Oh.
Which is why I wouldn't want to talk about it. I wouldn't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Right. Do you feel successful now?
Oh, yeah.
When did that first happen? At this school for, what was it called, special studies?
Yeah, I mean, success in a traditional way there.
No,
yeah.
The way you define it.
No, not the way I define it. But I did. I mean, I rode on I tend to be arrogant, so it fueled my arrogance to do really well in school. It wasn't necessarily good for me. But it was good in that I finally understood that I'm sort of smart.
Right.
Or I could be smart in certain ways anyway.
Interesting. It
Yeah.
fueled your arrogance, but you also said that you went in like packed with self-doubt and low self-esteem.
Yeah, sure.
So
Which is the flip side of arrogance, right?
I guess it happens often, those sort of like flip side bedfellows
Yeah.
of low self-esteem
so.
and outward arrogance.
Yeah.
And so you said this thing changed your life. How, in what kinds of ways, apart from just sort of making you think, oh, wow, I can use my brain?
Well, I think the program was designed to to lead us into the state of knowledge where it is now. It had a very historical basis,
Right.
And I had a very influential professor who was the most terrific teacher, who got his PhD at the New School, actually.
Oh, nice.
And is one reason I ended up there. Eventually, I ended up finishing my degree at the New School. I bounced around a lot, and then going back for a graduate degree.
Right.
And then working there.
Right. So how long were you in this school for? I forget what you called special studies.
Yeah, the College of Basic Studies was a 2-year program, and after which everyone who's successful at it, relatively successful at it, can integrate into any of the other schools at Boston University.
Okay. So
they have a new name for it. I've forgotten what it is. But
did you do the 2 years there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did the 2 years. And I think I integrated into the first semester, or maybe two semesters. I can't remember. I'd have to think about it.
Uh-huh.
And I started floating away from my studies and was drinking more and more. Right. And I got scared, and I withdrew for a semester, and I worked for a semester, stayed in Boston. I had a girlfriend there before deciding to transfer. It was a classic, I've got to change my place to change my life kind of move.
Uh-huh.
Everyone was encouraging me to just stay in Boston and finish.
But you didn't.
I did not. I did not listen to them.
Because you felt somehow that if you got out of there, you'd get out of the bad habits.
Exactly.
And so, where did you go?
To the New School. To New York.
Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So you finished the 2 years.
I finished at the undergraduate division of the New School.
Right.
Finally finished my degree in 1990.
With a degree in what?
Philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah. What I loved about the New School, and what turned me off about Boston University, I mean, outside of the drinking thing and the problem with that was that the New School, it was started as, it was called Seminar College. So all the classes were small seminars, and everything was based as much as possible on primary texts rather than textbooks.
Okay.
So you studied primary documents. And that appealed to me a lot. It also appealed to me to be able to take classes in the graduate school at the same time.
So you're finishing your undergraduate, but
you could also take. So I took a famous class at the New School with someone named Andrew Arado in the Frankfurt School, which were these German Marxists I was interested in. Adorno and Marcuse and so on. Yeah.
And did the school have sort of a Marxist bent to it, or
I would say the economics department certainly did. I would say, some departments had certainly radical people. There were. I was able to take a class with a radical feminist philosopher, Sarah Ruddock, called Thoughts, Something, and Feelings, and we read people like Audre Lorde, the radical poet, feminist, black feminist. So it introduced me to a lot of the radical writing that I wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
What a treat. So you're finishing up the philosophy degree and you're taking graduate school courses also in philosophy? Yeah.
Well, the Arado was sociology. I mean, those lines are blurred, and especially,
So did you finish up your master's degree there at the New School?
I did. Well, I lived in Italy for a year.
Okay.
After I graduated. Finally.
In Abruzzo?
No. I just met a guy in Rhinebeck at the pool in the locker room. We were showering up, and I found his license on the ground, and I handed it to him. Somebody named John, very nice guy. And I had lived in Rome for a year. And I only know the name of one hotel in Rome, which is called Hotel Abruzzo. And it's right in the Pantheon piazza. And it turns out he said to me, we just came back from Rome and we stayed in a place right near the Pantheon. I said, oh, Hotel Abruzzo? I sort of blew his mind.
What a great moment.
Yeah, it was funny.
So you took a year off to go live in Rome and do what?
I went. I knew
Were
I
you
wanted to go
still drinking at this point?
I knew I wanted to go to graduate school.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I was my drinking actually crossed the line of not being able to come back at that point. I could tell you why.
Yeah, why?
Oh, so maybe at that point I was just a heavy drinker. I think maybe I crossed the line into alcoholism in Rome because I got a job. I wanted to stay for a year and learn Italian there because I was so terrible learning languages in a classroom.
Right.
And I thought, what the hell? I should have this experience, In fact, I didn't want to come back. I mean, I hated coming back here. I wanted to stay there. And I had a girlfriend who was in Paris doing the same thing with French. So she had a job as an au pair. She was living in a very sort of swanky neighborhood near the Tuileries.
Uh-huh.
And I would take the overnight train to see her and get a couchette. It was all fun and romantic and everything.
It sounds dreamy.
Yeah. I mean, she was a nightmare, but...
So how did it cross? You said it crossed over.
Yeah. So I got a job in a house as a tutor for a kid who was going to the American Overseas School of Rome on Via Cassia in Rome. And so the father was this guy from Brooklyn. We were very simpatico right away. My mother's Jewish. She's Jewish from Brooklyn. My father's from Brooklyn. And we hit it off right away. And he sort of came from the neighborhood, but he was an academic too. He was a very smart guy, but had 2 degrees from Yale at the same time, a law degree and a political science degree. He married an Italian who, when she was young, was in socialist politics in Venice. And by the time, and she became a professor eventually. But by the time they had moved back to Italy, everyone she knew in politics was now very powerful, in really powerful positions.
Right.
One was Gianni Di Michaelis, who was the foreign minister of Italy at the time, ended up going to prison during Tangentopoli, the scandals of the mid-90s. But he was, they had alcohol in the house all the time. They had wine, demijohns they'd buy. We'd bottle it ourselves. So they liked to drink. And they said, take as much wine as you want, whenever you want. I had wine with lunch for the first time. I was drinking during the day, which I hadn't done before because I used that as a kind of rationalization that it wasn't a problem.
Right.
Because I don't drink during the day. Clearly, people who have problems drink during the day.
Yeah.
So, and then I think I crossed the line. I created a physical dependency at that time that was just...
And so at that point, did you see yourself crossing the line?
Kind of. I would pledge a lot of mornings that this was it. This was the last time. I was always into working out, so I was running like crazy. I'd run every morning, run out the hangovers.
Right.
But then I'd sit down to lunch and... it was quite an arrangement I had. It was really cushy because all I had to do was tutor this kid for a couple of hours and they gave me room and board.
Nice.
Yeah, and $500 a month or something like that.
Right.
And but I'd sit down to lunch and the wine glasses would come out and I couldn't say no.
Right.
Couldn't say no anymore.
Oof.
Yeah.
So back to Rome, you get this cushy job.
Yeah.
You're drinking. It sounds like you're enjoying the drinking at that point.
Well, I don't know.
Also, pledging every morning.
Well, I would drink. What happened was I would drink and then sleep after lunch and wake up and do my work with the kid when he came home from school.
Right.
And then dinner, drink. And then I made one friend in this. I was in a town on the north side of Rome. It's kind of a suburb called Formello. And I would meet this guy. He was curious about me for some reason. He wanted to learn some English, maybe. I don't know. He was just kind of bored. He was an artist. One of the few in the town. Really fascinating guy. He now runs a school that's based in the town for incisione, engraving, and all the ancient techniques.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he would come and pick me up with a dictionary, English-Italian dictionary. And we'd drive around, and then we'd go to the pubs. He liked to drink. I don't know if he had a problem or not, whatever. But so by the time I got home at 2, 3 in the morning, I was...
Egads.
They called me the Canale Americano, the American canal in town. It was really embarrassing.
The canal?
Yeah, because I would drink so much.
Egads.
Yeah.
So why did that year come to an end? Why did you decide to come back to the States?
Well, to go to graduate school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So you're not totally self-destructive at this point.
Well, no. I mean, I would say, a fairly highly functioning drunk.
And you came back to graduate school.
Yeah.
To the new school.
Yeah.
To finish a master's.
To do a master's degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. In philosophy.
In the political science department, but in the theory part of the department.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And because in your philosophy studies, you were exposed to all these sort of like radical political ideas, and that interested you.
Well, one big reason I went to the new school was Hannah Arendt.
Right.
I loved.
Right.
I read one slim book. It was an essay originally in the New York Review of Books called On Violence,
mm-hmm.
and it blew me away. And I learned from this professor who was very influential. His name was Dr. Ernie Kilker, who'd gotten his PhD there and had sat in on Arendt's last classes, which became the book The Life of the Mind, that she had taught there and everything. So I was drawn to the place just for that reason alone.
Right.
Ironic. Can I tell a funny story? When
I
got my first job in the new school, I took over an office that was the office of Hannah Arendt's last teaching assistant, who had hung around that long, till 2005. He also edited the last collections of her essays.
Wow.
And it was called the Hannah Arendt Center at the new school.
Right.
My office.
Don't we have one of those up here at Bard?
Yes,
too?
exactly. That's another story, because her husband taught up here for a while. And
okay.
she occasionally taught here too, I think, at Bard. Maybe a semester at a time. My first day at this new job, I called somebody, and there was a caller ID system at the new school. But the window wasn't big enough to fit Hannah Arendt's center. So this woman was giggling after I called her, and I said, "What is it?" She said, "My phone said that Hannah Arendt was calling." So Hannah Arendt was on her ID. I thought
That's so fun.
A full circle kind of story.
So back to the degrees. You finished your master's.
Yeah.
Did you go on to get more?
No. I was incapacitated by drink. It's a miracle I finished at all. It took me years, in fact. I had all these incompletes. I had to...
How did you get off of the booze?
Well, I found my way. I found help.
Uh-huh.
Anyone can find help nowadays if you reach out.
Yeah, anyone can find help, but I think it's like getting your mind around to the place where it's like,
you have to hit bottom. I mean, it's a long. That's another hour story I could tell, but it took a long time. It took many attempts.
Did you feel that you had hit rock bottom, as they say?
Oh yeah, a number of times. I was dragged on the bottom, as they say. I was dragged along the bottom many times.
Uh-huh.
But the bottom is when you stop digging. I like that one. The bottom is simply when you stop digging. That's your real bottom.
Isn't that interesting?
Or you want to get sober more than you want to stay drunk.
Right.
That's a better definition.
And where did you find help?
Well, I just found it. I have a program of recovery. I don't talk about it.
Okay.
And not in public.
Right.
But,
well, hats off to you anyway for finding help. I've got friends who had all kinds of issues and found help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an incredible, and I've watched them do it. And it's an incredible thing to see people taking these steps and making it work for them, and just turning their lives away. I don't want to say around, but completely away from these debilitating drugs and alcohol and stuff.
Right. Right.
It's really a triumph of willpower and stuff.
I'm envious of kids today who, because it's so prevalent now, the knowledge of recovery programs and getting help is so much easier now, and people are more willing to speak. You know, I had situations when I was a kid, I should have been hustled over to the detox unit.
Right.
As a 12-year-old, you know.
Yes. But,
It's crazy.
but yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was something that people were embarrassed to talk about.
Yeah.
And, you know, right or wrong, I don't know. But now today, it's like people are like, oh, I've been away for a month.
Yeah, maybe
get
more
right.
that the disease model has become more accepted, so it's more of a medical approach.
Right. As opposed to, oh, it's a personal failing.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
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 Well, back to this. Hats off to you. So you finished up there at the new school, and you went to work for this publishing company, and one of your authors.
Right. I was
there-
waiting tables a lot in between there to make
city?
make my way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And this author said, "Oh well, I'm getting a degree in library science,"
Yeah.
and you looked into it and thought, "Oh boy, this is for me."
Yeah.
And was that degree at the new school as well?
No, that was at St. John's,
Okay.
which is out in Queens.
And how long a program is that?
You know, I stretched it out to 2 years because I had just stopped drinking and I needed time to decompress, I think.
Right.
You could have done it, I don't know, people did it in a little over a year, I think. But I did stretch it out. I was working at the same time. And so that was one other reason to stretch it out. But yeah, so it was a 2-year program.
And did you take to it? You're doing this program. Did you think, wow, this is really?
No, I had a friend. I had an old friend who was a librarian from Boston University. She's a writer, and just by coincidence, I knew someone who knew her through the writing world, because I'd met this writer named Lucy Greeley, who eventually died of an overdose. She wrote Autobiography of a Face. It was a big book at the time in the late 90s. And but she knew this writer friend of mine who had been a librarian, and she put me in touch with her when I was trying to decide whether or not to go, you know? And so we exchanged emails, and this old friend of mine said, "You are going to hate library school and love being a librarian."
And did
my
that turn
guess.
out to be correct?
Absolutely correct.
Oh, so
I don't know if I hated library school. I was bored by a lot of it. I think it's a superfluous degree.
But you finished and got the degree.
Oh yeah.
And do you have to have that degree pretty much to get a
You
job?
pretty much do, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you finished the degree, and what happened next? Where'd you go?
Oh, well, it was September. I finished right before September 11th, 2001.
Wow.
So, like literally, I think maybe May or June, I guess. I don't quite remember the timing. But my first job was a part-time gig in Staten Island. So I was still living in Queens near St. John's. So I had to borrow a friend's car to get to my first job at CUNY, Staten Island.
Okay.
Yeah, very weird campus. I think it was the old, that site where Geraldo Rivera ran that expose of the state mental facility. Remember that? In the 70s, Willowbrook? I think it was on that old facility.
And how long did you have that gig?
That was just a semester, but they offered me an interview, but I couldn't see living on Staten Island, and I didn't want to commute to Staten Island.
Right.
So I got a job in a public library in Yonkers. That was my first real full-time gig as a librarian. Yeah.
And did you move up to Yonkers?
No, I moved in with a friend who the .com bubble had burst. She was working in that world and lost her job and needed desperately help. So we moved into this tiny 2-bedroom in Little Italy. And I was commuting from Little Italy to Yonkers.
Egads.
Yeah. It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible.
Well, how long was it?
I'd go to Grand Central
Right.
and
Okay.
and or sometimes I'd take the, I'd take the subway up to Marble Hill and pick up the Metro North there. So I don't remember the time commitment. Maybe an hour and a half, 15 hour and a half.
Each way.
Yeah, each way. Yeah.
That's a lot.
I always slept on the way down, so it wasn't so bad.
And so how long did that last?
2 years before the economy recovered. Economy was devastated after.
Right. So you're lucky to have a job.
Yeah.
And where'd you go after Yonkers?
I got my first sort of academic gig at LaGuardia Community College, just over the 59th Street Bridge.
And how was that different from a regular library gig? The academic
public
gig.
library, you mean? How is it different from a public library?
Yeah.
It's very different. Public library in Yonkers, we were not doing a lot of research at all. It was... the most interesting part of my job there was giving classes in how to use the computer to older folks.
Right.
Which was, I loved that. And I learned I loved teaching through that job, actually.
Right.
Yeah. I was teaching seniors. I mean, the classes were open to everyone, but it was seniors who had the time to come and take them, like in Microsoft Word,
Right.
And just teaching the basics, it was, to me, hilarious venture,
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you got your next job was at a university, and was there a thought that you would get to continue teaching?
Yeah. In fact, I taught a class, a research class that for credit, and the CUNY system, librarians won the right. There's a division in the academic world with librarianship. You could be on tenure tracks, or you could be considered staff. At the New School, I'm staff. At CUNY, they won the right to be professors. So I was an associate professor or assistant professor, whatever, when I started there. And you have to prove yourself to the tenure board after a certain amount of time and so on. That idea did not appeal to me. Yeah.
It did not?
No.
How come?
I don't like jumping through these hoops that
right.
you have to jump through with committee service and conference attendance and publishing papers on how high the reference desk should be and so on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did you go from there to the New School?
Mm-hmm.
And so that must have been kind of nice because you didn't have all of that pressure.
Oh, it was great.
Tenure track.
And at that time I was living on 10th Street, so I was a block from work.
Spectacular.
Yeah, I had a 6-minute walk to work.
Love that.
The first time and last time in my life.
and now you're still at the New School. How
still
long,
there.
How long has that been?
19 years. 19 years.
And you're still staff.
Yeah, still staff.
And you're happy doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Well, and do they take care of the staff anyway? When we get like retirement or?
Well, I'm a Teamster.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
You're in the union.
I'm in the union. Certain staff are unionized, certain are not. So I unionized. I made the decision to unionize when I was there for about 10 years already, I think.
And it's the Teamsters?
Teamsters, right.
Who else is in that union?
Oh, a lot of the clerical staff.
Right.
Yeah. My wife is a professor there, an adjunct, and she's also in a union, but they're in the UAW. They're in the auto workers, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How the hell does that happen?
I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not a union scholar, but
and so
it works.
Well, yeah. And so how has it been being in the union for you? You happy?
Oh yeah, it's nice to have that this organization, solidarity, has your back.
Right.
Know? Yeah.
And you feel that often?
Well, not often. It certainly came up in the pandemic when they were trying to fire so many people. The administrators.
And the union stepped up and said,
I didn't have to. That's the point. We're in a union, so you're represented.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they wielded the collective power, and the administration said...
Yeah, there was an agreement. They unfortunately had to put certain people on leave. But I think it worked out for them financially with at least partially taking unemployment and so on.
Right.
And they were back. They were hired back fast enough.
Right.
So it was a temporary layoff for a lot of people who didn't have seniority.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So being, I know your politics are left.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been influenced by your union membership? And who do you like? How's Biden done for the unions?
Oh, we don't have to talk about that.
I'm curious. I mean, because there's a lot of hoo-ha about he was the first president to march on a picket line with, I think, the UAW.
I think there was a remarkable change, put it that way, from some pro-union policies coming out of Washington, out of the White House,
right?
That we haven't seen since, say, Carter, or even before.
So that's a good thing.
Oh yeah.
And do you think Kamala will carry on these pro-union?
I have no idea. I don't have a good idea.
Right.
Yet.
But you're happy with her as a candidate?
Oh, who's not ecstatic at this point? I mean,
thrilled.
The energy coming out off of her. It's like somewhat. Sarah Schulman is a writer I like very much. I follow her on social media. She said something today which really struck me. It's like just the. I wish I had it in front of me. The astounding amount of hope we didn't even know we had came out.
Right.
As soon as the announcement was made and we started to see her again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so one of your other jobs is you're a writer. You're a poet.
Right.
Has your writing changed since then? Since this astounding amount of hope that you didn't even know was there?
No. I don't think I write that often to say.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, someone else would have to look at what I've done since then.
Right.
Well, how long has it been? A week and a half or
something? It's not that long. Well, how often do you write?
Well, it could be every day.
Right.
Most days, I'd say.
And your wife is an author as well.
Yeah.
And a writer and a professor of creative writing, or
she teaches what's called first year writing. So
okay.
It's a kind of mandatory writing for all the kids coming in.
Nice.
All the freshmen.
And she's got a book coming out soon, right? What's
yes, and I want to plug her publisher, which is called Betty Books. It's a new imprint of WTAW Press in San Francisco. Their inaugural book, I have this written out in front of me so I wouldn't forget any of it.
Yeah.
It's called Take Me With You Next Time by Janice Hubschmann. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
So that's coming out in October 5th. It's a imprint of this publisher, and their sort of tagline is "Books by Women for Everyone."
Nice.
So it's woman focused. And my wife's book is called When We're Ready.
Haley
Hawk. Yeah, it's pronounced Hawk.
Oh,
I know you've only seen it.
Haley Hawk. But
Haley
it's
Hawk.
H-A-C-H?
H-A-C-H.
Okay.
And it's called When We're Ready, and hers is coming out in September 2025. So she'll be the third, I think, book, or the fourth Betty book.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing...
so it's a house full of writers.
Yeah, that's right.
And academics.
Yeah, and my 8-year-old has announced that she wants to be a children's author. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
A good age to begin with that.
Yeah.
And so do you all read apart from your 8-year-old, do you and your wife read each other's writing?
Yeah, of course. I'm a little stingy with giving mine out because I'm more self-conscious than she is.
Right.
And yes, I read almost everything she writes.
Uh-huh.
And I am putting together this big poetry collection. I'm going to ask her to help me shear it down, as I am a number of people.
How many poems will be in sort of the unabridged, the first
over
draft?
100. Over 100.
And is there a target for how many poems you'd like in the finished book?
I want to see how many overlap in what people like, my readers.
Right. And how often do you write a poem?
Sometimes I'll write one a day for 4 days, and then I won't write one for a month.
Right.
So I don't really have an answer.
And it's nice. There's no pressure. You write whenever you feel like it.
No pressure. Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't be writing poems without Facebook, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If the internet, maybe not Facebook, but the internet social media never happened.
That is such an interesting comment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I read your poetry.
Right.
And I love it.
Thank you.
And you brought some with.
Yes.
Would you read one
Yeah.
for us now?
Can I read the one you liked that I didn't bring?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know you like the sort of the more lighthearted ones, which is this one is.
Oh, I loved this traffic one. You had a traffic one recently, which was so good because it was sort of universal. You were just pissed off at people.
Okay, this is untitled. I guess it's called "I'm Shaving," which is the first line. I'm shaving. My daughter comes in. You know how people shaved a long time ago, she asks. Yeah, you mean, I say, with a straight edge razor? Wondering how she might know about that. No, she says dismissively. Way before that. Back when humans were monkeys. Oh, I say, I have no idea. I know, she says. Yeah, I ask. She looks into the mirror at her own face and makes the plucking motion with her fingertips. They pulled the hair out, she says, and as suddenly as she'd come, she's gone, as are the dark, foreboding, and confused thoughts I was living through before I knew she was there.
Love that. And one of the things I love about this poem is that your poetry often features your daughter.
Right.
She'll say something or do something, and it'll spur these poems.
Yeah.
And she's often like sort of the foil for the darkness.
Right.
Yeah, which is just great. Also wanted to ask, you don't seem to like periods in your poetry. There's lots of commas, but hardly any periods.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I can't say. It's like it comes out in a breathless way, maybe.
Right.
So it should be expressed that way.
And how? So it comes out, and then you spend a lot of time editing. Some people
Sometimes.
don't. Some people don't.
Sometimes.
Right.
Certainly edit the obvious mistakes right away, but I like to publish them on Facebook or post them as pretty much first drafts. I do not spend a lot of time editing before they go on Facebook, but then I love about Facebook the memories function because it comes back a year later, the poem.
Yeah.
And I will not have looked at it in that year. And then I start to edit and take it out and delete it from Facebook, and then it becomes a real poem for me.
You delete the old one, the first draft.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back to try to find some poems that I especially liked.
Right.
And I didn't see them.
Right.
So this must be what happened.
Probably, yeah.
So when you get these Facebook memories of these first drafts, what percentage of them would you say make it to a second draft?
Oh, maybe a quarter.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So 25% of the first drafts, you're like, hey, there's something here.
Something there. Maybe I could work with that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you have, over 100 of these.
Right.
Second or third or fourth drafts.
Right.
And so do you have some idea of who might publish that kind of thing? Do you desire to have it published?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to give it out to people I know in publishing and see what happens.
Right.
If anything happens. I've tried. I'm not hopeful because I do not send poems out to journals. I have in the past, but I generally don't.
And publishers like a track record. Like,
yeah, of course.
You published 12 of these in other places already.
Of course. I mean, if someone picks up a book of poems in a bookstore, they'd like to see where has this poet published. They like to see so-and-so's work has appeared in.
And so why do you not do that?
Because I got discouraged. I mean, I wasn't getting any I got one published poem in a boutique kind of journal. It didn't even have an ISSN. It was out of New Jersey, like a vanity project. So
ISSN. Was that previously the ISBN?
No, ISSN is for periodicals.
Oh, okay.
ISBN is for books.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What is the S for in the periodical?
Don't ask me. I forgot.
I already passed my library science quizzes.
Yeah, it's in. School's over.
All right, well, would you read another? You brought some poems.
I'd love to.
Great.
I brought a bunch, and I think I picked these because I know my wife said she liked them when they were up initially. This one is also not titled. I was born in a kitchen on fire. My parents were bicycle distributors. They collected old briefcases and nailed them to the wall. They wanted adventure without having to leave the couch. They had strict rules about what we were able to watch, not on TV, but in life. We were told to turn away as marching bands approached. My father, emphatic, "I hate fucking parades." My particular kind of curiosity had us under investigation, the courts, the constables. My siblings played piano in the street without pay, trying to lead us all to a new society from scratch, one that would take away the reasons we had for lying.
Wow. Love that.
Okay.
So you reference family members, especially your father,
Yeah,
often in poems. Is this like really your father?
Well, it's the feeling that a father left me,
Okay.
I would say.
In one of them you talk about, and I'm trying to remember the context, your father used to walk home from the butcher with a cup of blood, balancing a cup of blood on his
Oh, yeah, that was completely fictional. I mean, that wasn't literal at all.
It was quite an image. It was so far out.
Yeah.
As often happens, made you think, well, it must be real. 'Cause who would make that up? Completely fictional. So I loved your answer. It's not literally your dad.
No.
Often.
No.
It's more often the feeling.
Yeah.
The emotional side of your dad. And is he still around?
Yeah, he is. I spoke to him today.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you have a good relationship with him?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. You see him? Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Also a creative sort?
Well, you could say. I mean, he's a doctor.
Uh-huh.
He really loves, he's a cardiologist.
Okay.
And he's what he loves about his job is the art of diagnosis, I think.
Right.
He loves the puzzle. He was always a puzzle guy.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's really into that.
The art of diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a bunch of doctors. My son at one point really was into cars, and he was like the shop boy at a car place around here, worked for a local car mechanic, M&M.
Right.
And he loved all of that, and he sort of thought about that career, but I think he wanted a white collar career. I'm like, it's the same job. They're both in diagnostics. It's just that one has like one make and two models. The other has 40 makes and hundreds of models.
That's right.
And the diagnostics seems like the interesting part.
Do you know there's this passage, if I can interrupt you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm a big fan of Noam Chomsky.
Right.
And there's a book that the New Press did, collected interviews. I want to say it's I've forgotten the title. It's slipped away. But I remember a passage forever from that book where he's asked about intellectuals. And he says, well, let's step back. What is an intellectual? And he describes most academics as doing secretarial work, not being particularly intellectual, using their minds. And he gives the example of a good car mechanic being probably a greater intellectual than most people who fill the universities, because of the problem solving that goes on with being a mechanic,
the
good
non-stop
mechanic.
problem solving.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that I remember that interview every time I need to take my car and I don't know what the hell's going on, and I watch these people and their amazing body of knowledge,
Right.
Yeah.
And so do you get that in your job as a research librarian, a lot of like problem solving?
Well, I guess there is a puzzle to finding sources, finding material. A student or professor will come to me and say, I need this particular speech from Nazi Germany in 1934 in German or English. Please help me find it. So that represents a kind of puzzle.
Right.
A treasure hunt. Sleuthing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, people think we're going by the way of the dinosaur because of the internet and AI, but I think these people don't know really what's involved in research.
Right.
Anyone really involved in especially historical research you'll see at the end of their books, still thank the librarians who helped them find things.
And how come AI is not helpful in that realm?
Well, I don't think it's sophisticated enough.
Right.
It is, right now it's an amazing plagiarism machine as far as I can see.
Right.
That may change. I don't know enough about it, really. I wouldn't want to give an opinion beyond that. Right now, I would never imagine AI being able to satisfy research questions that I handle that are sophisticated.
And so when these research questions are your first steps, I'm guessing, in your own library, and then you sort of spread out from there?
Well, sometimes it depends. Depends, because I have to know what we have.
Are there cases where people came to you and said, I need this, that you recall now, like decades later or years later, like, oh, that was really kick-ass? Where you're proud of the sleuthing and the the creative thinking that got you to the point of success?
Yeah. I just can't think of any offhand, but yes, there have been triumphs.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, I suggested for our library a university-wide presentation of research stories where we helped someone and it was really interesting path to discovery.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it was a Zoom thing during the pandemic. It went over really well.
And did somebody collect those research stories?
I bet the video still exists. Yeah.
Oh, I want them collected.
Oh, I'll send them to you.
I want them up on the marketing tool in the American Society of Library Sciences or whatever.
Well, that's what we were doing. We were marketing our services,
Right.
We were coming up with ideas to market our services, and I had this idea to let's tell these research stories.
Well, I love that idea a lot.
Yeah.
So...
And I helped a historian. She was at the time the dean of Lang College, I think, and she was trying to get a hold of primary source documents. I think it was black newspapers from the 19th century. So, and there was a whole, there was an interesting path, and I can't recount it at this point, but
right,
yeah, to finding.
It seems like the kind of thing that some university.
Well, we found them at a public library somewhere.
Right.
Digitally. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
It may have been Schomburg, which is part of the New York Public Library System, the one in Harlem.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a treat. So, happy in your job? You think you'll continue doing that for the foreseeable future?
Until they shovel me out. Absolutely.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you exercise and play a lot of tennis.
Right.
Have you always played tennis?
No.
When did you take that up?
About, I would say 15 years ago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're living in the city? It's before you...
I was living in the city.
Uh-huh.
I had a good friend playing tennis a lot, and I would go to Montauk for my vacation every year. And I moved into a collective, one of these kind of flop houses in Montauk, so we could afford to stay there I would go for a month at a time. I'd take a month-long vacation. And there were some tennis people in the house. It's like 2007, 8, I think. Yeah. And we'd go there were 2 courts in Montauk, a public court and a private club. And I started playing, and I thought I was terrible. I have to get good at this. It became like this thing. Why am I so bad at this? I've got to get good at it. I played one summer when I was 14 and loved it. I went to a tennis camp, half a day, and I loved it. But again, I had other priorities took over, drinking and stuff.
Right.
Girls and drinking and whatever.
And so now you're revisiting tennis, but you're not drinking.
Right.
And so instead of saying like, oh, I'm terrible, fuck it, you went the other direction.
Yeah.
You're like, really want to get good.
Yeah.
And so did you start taking lessons in the city and stuff?
I didn't take lessons for a while. I was learning on my own. Take an occasional lesson. Yeah, out in Park Slope, under the bubble in the winter, I took a couple.
Right.
Oh, I went, after a few years, I started going to the USTA, the Billie Jean King Center out in Queens.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I would play there because it was cheaper than any other indoor facility in the winter. It's like 2 hours to get there on the subways. And I found a coach there that I used quite a bit.
Oh, nice. And then you moved up here where everybody plays tennis.
Right. Yeah.
And so did you find a coach here?
Yeah, at Total Tennis.
Oh, nice. And who are you working with?
His name's Andre, and he's got a Russian last name that I can't pronounce. It's like 14,000 syllables. But he's terrific. He was a top European junior, and he's an amazing teacher.
Yeah. How often do you work with Andre?
Oh, once a week. Now once every 2 weeks. It gets expensive,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, because I've known you on the tennis courts for a handful of years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're out of my league. Your game's really improved a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. It's all from the coaching.
Yeah. And so how many times a week do you play?
You got to be humble. Go to a coach.
Yeah.
I've played like 4 times a week generally. I'm having a scary knee issue right now.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I'm going to shift over to rehab for a while. I'm not going to play. I'll be off the roster for a while.
Physical therapy? Or
No, just my
rest?
own. Yeah, my own physical therapy from what I've gleaned on the internet.
Right.
I think it's a meniscal tear. So.
And what can be done for that? That's terrifying.
There's a great, if you're interested. I mean, I found this doing research because I'm a researcher.
Yeah.
I found this character at what's called the Princeton something Joint Center. A doctor who gave a 20-minute talk that summed up what it could possibly be, what could possibly be the problem, and what surgery might mean, why surgery is good, and so on. Or might not. It doesn't substitute going to a doctor, I know that.
So
but I'm going to see if I could handle the rehab myself. I found exercises to rehab.
Without surgery.
Yeah, without surgery.
Right.
Plus, I mean, learning from this video, I learned something that I did not know, that no one had told me. I spoke to about this, non-medical people though, that right now there's a good part of research is saying that surgery will leave you with arthritis later in life.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I found that
like
out.
a bad bargain.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's definitely overused because I play too much.
Your knee's overused.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're on rest and relaxation right now.
Right.
And some rehab, some kind of physical therapy stuff.
Right.
How long do you think that'll be?
I don't know. I'm not pushing it.
Right.
I'm not expecting it to heal up soon.
Right. And is it the pounding, the
That's what they say.
concussion?
That's what they say.
It's not the twisting. It's the
It's
pounding.
both.
Oh, it's both.
It's both.
So you're completely off.
Oh, you mean what hurts?
Off the tennis courts.
Well,
No,
I have
I'm
to
saying-
go. I'm playing in the USTA regional final tomorrow. Actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Where's that?
In at a place called Cross Court in
Oh, right.
down in
singles or doubles?
doubles. I'm
Who's your
playing
partner?
doubles. This guy Mark Melton. I don't know him very well.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's around.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We're
We're out of time. That
Yeah.
was fast. That
It
went
zooms
fast.
by. We have like 10 seconds left. One question I wanted to ask a bunch. Who's your favorite poet, or what's your favorite piece of art ever?
Oh my God. Tony Hoagland's my favorite poet.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
I will look him up.
my favorite piece of art ever is, I don't know, one of Bernard's self-portraits that's hanging in the Met.
So sweet. All right, good. Paul Abruzzo, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great Friday evening
Thanks
and a
so much,
fabulous
Norm.
weekend.
Thank you.